What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be focusing on the Stanley Cup playoffs. Mondays we're going to be focusing all around the leagues, and then on Wednesdays we'll do something specific in a certain league. So today we're going to do the playoffs. We're going to start off with a combined bracket and kind of talk about who we think is going to go between the both of us, and then we're going to do each of our individual brackets and just go into it. So we're going to start off in the Central, and in the Central, the first matchup we have is the Hurricanes to the Predators. And in the 8 games, the Hurricanes went 6-2-0 against the Predators, and the Predators only had 1 overtime loss. So overall, the Predators had 5 points, and the Hurricanes had 12 in the series. It was 24 goals for the Hurricanes and 17 goals for the Predators. And the leading scorer for the Hurricanes was Sebastian Aho, as you'd expect. And then Matthias Ekholm, which isn't very good for the Predators, being that a defenseman is their leading scorer. Yeah. That really shows that their offense is kind of lacking. And so what I think is going to happen here.
It's a no-brainer for me. I think the Hurricanes are going to do very well against the Predators. The Predators really haven't shown that they're good enough to really contend with the Hurricanes over a 7-game series. They might scratch out a win or two here, but I think the Hurricanes are going to move forward in this series.
I think the Hurricanes are also going to win, being in the fact that their team is also built for defense all around, so I think they just have a little bit of an edge over the Predators. Like you said, I think the Predators could scratch out a win here and there, but I don't think overall that they can pull off an upset against the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes have just been a dominant team all year. So next will be the Panthers and the Lightning. And just so you guys know, we have the tail of the tape for the first round. We don't have it for the second round. So once we get into the second ones, it'll be just up to what we have to say about it. So for this one, the Lightning through 6 games were 3-3, and I have the other 2 pulled up right here. So Tampa just lost to Florida 5-1 and 4-0. So it's a 31 goals for the Panthers, and through 6 games, Alexander Barkov was their leading scorer with 6 points, and Braden Point was the leading scorer for the Lightning with 6 points. And so with this one, this is another interesting one. I think this one's going to be a long series. I think it'll go to at least 6 or 7. I don't think it'll be a 4 or 5 game series. I think it's going to go to at least 6 or 7. And I think that at the end of the day, Tampa will have a couple players coming back as they go along, and I think they'll take a little bit to get the rust out of them. But I think overall they just have an insane lineup for their team. So I think Tampa's going to take this.
My problem with this is, like, over the regular season, they've been pretty much identical, similar in points. They both won 3 games against each other and lost 3 games. I think the key to this could be the amount of injuries the Lightning have. I believe that McDonough and Hedman are going to be out for the first game, but they are going to have Stamkos and Kucherov returning. But my thing is, I think it's going to take a few games for them to get into the swing of things. So I think that could ultimately prove to be Florida's advantage.
So who are we thinking will advance from this one? I'd be willing to swing to Florida if you think Florida.
I think Florida in 7 games. It's going to be a very close series.
All right, we'll have Florida advancing there then. So I'll be Carolina and Florida in the we'll just keep on going on to the Central, because it's gonna matter up until we get to the Final Four is when we're gonna actually start switching stuff up. So, who do we think will win the Florida-Carolina one? I think Carolina will get this win easily again, especially against Florida. If it was against Tampa, I think it could be a closer matchup. But since it's against Florida, I think the Hurricanes will take this easily.
I think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be like a blowout, but I can see the Hurricanes winning it in like 6.
I agree with that. All right, so the Hurricanes move on to the Final Four. Let's move on up to the East, and let me pull up the matchups for those. Let's see. All right, here we go. So the first matchup that we're going to have is the Penguins versus the Islanders. And so the Penguins are 6-2-0 against the Islanders. They have 12 points on the season against the Islanders. The Islanders have 6 points. They have 2 overtime losses against the Penguins, helping them out. The Penguins have 25 goals for to the Islanders 19 goals for, and the Penguins' leading goal scorer against the Islanders is Chris Letang, and Matthew Barzal is the leading scorer for the Islanders.
I think out of all the first 2 round matchups, I think the East are going to have the closest series. I can honestly see all the possible matchups going to 6 or 7. Yes, the Penguins have had the edge in the regular season, but the Islanders are just a really scrappy team that seem to always stick around.
Yeah.
So I think the Penguins are going to ultimately win this, but I can see every game being decided by a single goal, and I think the Penguins are going to win in 6.
I'll go with you with the Penguins advancing in 6 or 7 because, like you said, this is just going to be such a close matchup overall. And I think either team can take this, especially with the way that the Islanders play. I've been saying all season that the Islanders are the most complete team all around. And so with that, since we're doing a group one here, I'll go with you and say the Penguins. Although I think this could go either way. But I think the Islanders could pull this one out too because of the fact that they have such a good team overall. And then next,
I think they're very good overall, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see them really excelling in any one specific area. They're just really good all around. They don't have like that specialty area where you can say they're one of the best in the league. You can say they're good all around.
Next is the Capitals versus the Bruins. The first matchup, and maybe the only matchup of one of our cities going in, as the Flyers didn't make the playoffs, unfortunately. So on the season, the Caps went 500 against the Bruins. They were 4-4. They won last night with a 2-1 victory, scoring the game winner with 1.8 seconds left.
Yeah.
From Michael Raffl, former Flyer, may I add.
He's played really well.
So they have 8. He's a good grinder guy. They have 8 points on the season against the Bruins. The Bruins have 10 points on the season against the Caps. Caps have 24 goals for and 26 goals against, with their leading scorer being Nicholas Backstrom and the leading scorer for the Bruins being Brad Marchand. And that's 9 points for Nick Backstrom and 13 points for Brad Marchand.
For me,
I'll let you go first.
This is a series that is undoubtedly going to 7 games. The Caps have had the edge over the last what seems like 20 years against the Bruins. We've always done very well, but this year hasn't been the best, but we've still been pretty good. I think this is definitely going 7 games in my opinion. It's really hard to say either way, but since we've been so good recently, and we just got Ovi back, we're gonna have Carlson back. I think the Caps in 7.
This is another one where I'm willing to swing either way, and with that, I will go Caps, and I'll switch it up with I'll switch it up when I do mine, and maybe you'll change a little bit when you do yours. But I could see the Caps taking this or the Bruins. This is going to be another really close battle, a really good one, honestly. And so I think that that'll be a very good matchup to watch. Especially, I mean, just from the game yesterday, it kind of gave you a little look at what the playoff series was going to be like. And I mean, it was a 2-1 win for the Caps. Like that's going to be a fun series to watch.
That's going to be a very fun series.
All right. And with that, let's go on to the Caps versus the Penguins. And this is another one where I will let you go first because
I have horrible memories about this series. I need to look at I need to find out what our record against the Penguins is, but it's not the best. We've struggled, it seems like, at times against the Penguins this year. I do think it's going to be another close series. But I think the Penguins are going to edge it out in 6. I don't think right now we just been able to get into a good enough run against them. It just seems like they have our number, and seems like their play style kind of goes against ours, and it's going to be a difficult matchup for either team, and I can see it going either way.
And I can see the Penguins moving on. Like you said, it can go either way. So I mean, there's nothing I can agree with you there. With the fact that, and the one reason I think the Penguins will edge it out is because the Penguins always have the Caps number in the playoffs.
Apart from that 1 year where we won, but
yeah, and maybe you guys slay your demons again this year, but you never know. Let's move on over to the North. So we'll start out with Toronto versus the Canadiens, and I have the teletape right here. So through 10 games, the Maple Leafs are 7-2-1 against the Canadiens, 15 points on the season. Canadiens have 7 points. The Maple Leafs outscored the Canadiens 34-25, and Austin Matthews led the Canadiens in scoring with 14 points, and the Maple Leafs in scoring with 14 points, and Jeff Petrie led the Canadiens in scoring with 10 points. And all 10 of those points were assists.
I think this is going to be a 5-game series for the Maple Leafs. It's of all the matchups I've seen, I don't think the Habs really have what it takes to beat them in a 7-game series, considering how hot the Maple Leafs are. And this could be their year. I don't think it is, but I do think they're going to get past the first round for the first time in a long time.
So I agree with you there. I think the Maple Leafs, the only way I can see the Canadiens winning this is, if you recall last year, I don't know if you watched any of the Flyers-Canadiens series in the playoffs, but the Canadiens are a resilient team. And so that's the only way I could see them winning. And the fact that the Maple Leafs struggle in the playoffs so much. But the Canadiens are a resilient team, and I think they'll put up a fight. I don't think it'll be a 5-game series. I think it'll still be a 6, maybe even a 7-game series in the end. But I think this will be a close one. I can see the Leafs pulling it out. Next on over to the Oilers and the Jets. Through 9 games on the season, the Oilers completely smacked the Jets, going 7-2-0 against them with 14 points on the season. The Jets only had 4 points against them. They had 34 goals to the 22 goals against. And Connor McDavid's the leading scorer for the Oilers with 22 points. And Nikolai Ehlers is the leading scorer for the Jets with 8 points. And I want to start this one out. Saying I think this one's going to be a really good series to watch, because I think the Jets have a good offense overall, and I think the Oilers have a good first line in Leon Draisaitl. The fact that they have a good power play, they have Leon Draisaitl, they have Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid scoring 100 points in 52 games, which is unreal. So this one I can see being very close. But in the end, I think the fact that there is more offensive weapon for the Jets, I think I'm going to have the Jets edging this one out, being the first upset in the playoffs.
I'm not sure I can't see the Jets beating the Oilers. I just think the way that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are playing right now, I think it's enough to be able to get them past the first round.
So you're having the Oilers. So which way do we want to sway here? Do we want to go Jets? I think that the Jets just have a more complete team. I think the Oilers have a couple good defensemen, but I mean, honestly, I think this is going to be a high scoring series, because I mean, 34 goals for and 25 goals, or my bad, 34 goals for the Oilers is insane on the season. And that shows that maybe Winnipeg doesn't have a strong enough defense. But I mean, 22 goals for isn't exactly anything to just blink away at either.
Yeah, I think it is going to be an offensive battling series, and I just can't see the Jets. While I do think they're a more well-rounded team, I just can't see them outscoring the Oilers. I just can't, because that first line is, I'd say, the best in the NHL, considering it as like two of the best players in the NHL period. So I have the Oilers. I do think it's going to be a close, high-scoring series.
So do we want to put the Oilers here?
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think the Jets or Oilers are going to lose to the Leafs. I just don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters in the end because I do not see either of those teams beating. So, well, I guess we just really told. Actually, I kind of want to talk about this one because I think the Oilers could beat the Leafs. Like, again, the Leafs struggle in the playoffs, and the Oilers have the two highest scoring players in the NHL. And maybe this is the point where the Maple Leafs come back down to earth and realize that they aren't a team that wins in the playoffs.
You know what? I'm going to go with it because this is going to be our hot video. I just think it's going to be like, I think the Leafs are going to fold. I mean, they typically do. So I can see the Oilers, like, just McDavid and Draisaitl just dragging them past the Leafs.
All right.
And all the games they played this year have been relatively close. The only ones that were really there's only two that were really blowouts.
So then with that, so the Oilers advance on to the final round, to the final four, excuse me. But with that, we're going to go on to the West. And if you guys are able to see this on YouTube, which I think I'll be able to get it out, but even on Instagram, you guys will see that there are asterisks next to the number 2 seed and the number 1 seed. And that's because as of right now, the season technically hasn't ended for the Western Conference teams. The Avalanche are 2 points behind the Golden Knights as of Wednesday at 2:30. They both play tonight. And if the Golden Knights get a win, then that locks in the first seed for them. But as of right now, we're just going to play along as the Golden Knights being the 1 seed and playing the 4 seed Blues. But since that matchup isn't quite set up yet, we don't have the stats right in front of us able to talk about. But I think this one's still going to be a pretty easy one to tell without just having the stats in front of you. Vegas is a nasty team. I mean, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. I mean, this team is insane. And the fact that they went to I don't think they've missed the playoffs since they came into the league. Correct me if I'm wrong.
3 years.
Yeah, they went to a Stanley Cup final their first year. And I just don't think that they're going to be dropping out of the first round against the Blues, who've been struggling and have the lowest points percentage of the teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's so just the Blues. I just can't see them. Like, I can't see them beating the Golden Knights, considering how well the Knights have been playing this year.
All right, so Vegas advances on, and then next the Avalanche versus the Wild. And this is another one where I think it's just going to be an easy blowout. And I think the Avalanche are just going to blow the Wild out of the water because the Wild are another one of those teams where, I mean, they're good if they need to be, but I don't think they're good enough to beat the Avalanche because the Avalanche, in my opinion, is the best team in the West, even better than the Golden Knights. But, and that's the Western Conference as a whole, like normally when we have a normal season. I think they're the best team in the West, and so I think I'm going to have them advancing over the Wild.
Yeah, I did too. I just can't. The Wild, I don't think are good enough to deal with that Avs team. They're really nasty.
All right, so who do you see? This one's going to be a good matchup: the Golden Knights versus the Avalanche.
Like,
and what are we seeing here?
This is definitely going to be a 7-game series because every single time they've played, it seems like every single one of their games have been decided by a single goal or two. This is going to be a very, very tough series. And I have the Golden Knights going above them just for the pure fact they have had more playoff experience than this young Avs team has. Like this Golden Knights team has gone to the conference finals, I believe, twice, because I think they were in it either last year or they got close to it. But I just think the Golden Knights are a little bit more experienced, and they have Marc-Andre Fleury as a good backer in net who's been there, who's done it. So I
who
have the
just
Golden Knights.
reached, and Marc-Andre Fleury did just reach third all-time in wins for goalies.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Knights in 7, but the key to beating Fleury is, I think we saw it, like the Caps did it. You have to get him moving from side to side, because he tends to like really commit to pucks. So I think the Avs are gonna have get a lot of cross crease passes and stuff like that.
It's gonna be about it's gonna be a lot about just the way that the teams, like, they're going to have to fake him out a lot, because the one thing that I noticed from watching Fleury is just he likes to, like you said, he likes to commit to pucks. He likes to jump on. He likes to make the highlight play. And so, I mean, if you start making highlight reel plays and you get the puck moving a lot, and he tries to jump on one and it slips through it, then, I mean, that's an easy goal. And I think that can be the end of him. But for the fact that this is the one where we're kind of working together to get one going, I can see the Golden Knights moving on here.
Yeah.
So
and, I think the Avs are going to really have watch some footage of the Caps playoff series and watch like their playoff series last year just to see what works against Fleury. They played against him a lot. They're really going to have to try and get him to commit.
All right. And with that, we're going to go over to the actual standings, because the issue here now is in the Final Four. This is going to be the first interdivisional play that we will see in the season.
Yeah.
So we have to
difficult.
So yeah, we have to see the points percentage for each team. So 727 for the Knights. I think Vegas does have the most. Yes, 6. So it's and the Oilers have the least, so they will be the 4th seed.
So then
so Vegas is 1, and the 4th seed is the Oilers. So yeah, I mean, the matchups are going to stay the same.
They're going to be the same.
Yeah. So that actually works out in the end. All right. So looks like we're not going to be seeing the first, at least in the one that we have going together, we're not going to see a normal East versus East matchup, which I want to see. I want to see 2 teams from the same conference in a normal season play against each other, just to make a difference.
That would be cool.
So let's start out with I think the Vegas versus the Oilers will be the easier one to go here. And I think that even though McDavid and Draisaitl are nasty together, I still think the Golden Knights are just going to pull it out in the end. I mean, they're the better all-around team.
They don't have the depth.
I think this
deal with them.
Yeah, I think this is where the Cinderella run for the Oilers ends.
Yeah.
All right. And then all right, so while you're sitting there thinking about what you want to see, I'll give you my opinion here. With this matchup, I think that the Hurricanes they've been making steps every single year towards getting closer and closer. And the Penguins, they're not getting any younger. I mean, last year, they didn't even make it past the play-in round versus the Rangers, who are far inferior to the Hurricanes. And so for that reason, I think this will be a tough series. But I think that the Penguins, even though they were on a hot streak, aren't going to be able to make it past the Hurricanes, who are they're young. They have a good team all around. They're a defensive team. And so I think that the Hurricanes are going to be able to hold off the Penguins.
Yeah, and I just think the Penguins haven't played a team like the Hurricanes in the East. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there isn't a team like the Hurricanes who are fast and really push the puck. If you look at the East, the top 4 they're a lot older teams who are slower with their play. I guess you can say the fastest would be the Islanders, but they're still not as fast as the Hurricanes. And I think they're going to really try and get their skating legs on them. And I think it will be a close series just for the pure fact that the Penguins have the experience over the Hurricanes. but the Hurricanes are going to have that hunger, and I can see them moving on in a very close 6 or 7 game series.
Indeed. Okay, so the Stanley Cup is set. The Knights are playing the Hurricanes, and I think this will be a good series. Two young teams. I mean, Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone are popping off together. But I think that in the end, I don't even know what to think of this matchup right now. I think Vegas still doesn't have the legs under them that the Hurricanes do. Like we've been saying, the Hurricanes are young. They have a lot of young talent, and I think they have a little bit of the depth over the Knights. And the fact that they're so young and quick, I think they'll be able to move the puck a lot in front of Fleury and make him move around a lot, make a lot of open net space. And so for this Stanley Cup playoff, I think I'm going to have the Hurricanes winning this.
I do too. And I've been the last 2 matchups that these teams have had, the Golden Knights won the first one 4-3, and the Hurricanes won the second one 6-5 in a shootout. So I think a lot of these games will be very close. But I think the Hurricanes are going to have that style that's really going to be tough for Fleury to deal with. They're going to be fast. They're going to want to get a lot of breakaways. They're going to want to set up a lot of 2-on-1s, passing, like getting interceptions and like going towards the net. So I can see the Hurricanes taking it all this year.
All right, so there you have it. In our joint bracket, we have the Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup. And what do you think the Stanley Cup final series will be? I think it'll be Hurricanes in 6.
I say Canes in 7.
And the reason I say it's in 6 is because I don't really like once you get that 3-2 lead or that 3-1 lead, it's very hard for a team to like bounce back and take it to a game 7. And so, especially against a quick team like the Hurricanes. So I think the Hurricanes will edge it out in 6. But I'd love to see a 7-game series.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll take a break here. And then after this, we will go on to both of our individual brackets. All right. So coming back, we're now going to go into our individual playoff guesses. And I'm going to let Jacob go first. And I'm not sure how much of a difference we will see, but I'm just going to let him go through, ramble on, and give us his opinions on how he thinks the playoffs are going to end up and what he thinks will happen. So Jacob, go ahead.
I'm going to start on the top right with the East. First off, we're going to go with the Penguins versus the Islanders. I think the Penguins are a better team, but the Islanders, they're so scrappy. They seem to be able to stay in every single game. They have a great coach, but I can see the Penguins' experience winning out in this situation and winning I'd say it's going to go 6 games.
All right.
Next, we have my Caps versus the Bruins. I think this is going to be another 6 or 7 game series. The East is the closest division, I'd say, in the entire NHL this year. I'm going to take the Caps, not just because I'm a homer, but we've had so much success against them in the past, and it seems like we have their number, especially with Rask. We do extremely well against Rask, and considering we'll have Carlson back and Ovechkin, I can see us pulling out that game. Next, I'm going to have the Hurricanes. I say they're going to sweep the Predators. It's just the Predators, they don't have near enough a good team to be able to compete with the Hurricanes, in my opinion. Next, this is a very difficult series for me because while the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning have been very close this season, like the Lightning have a lot of injuries. Hedman and McDonough are going to be out the first game, but Kucherov and Stamkos are going to be back for the first game. But my problem with that is I can't see them getting into that rhythm they had last year because they haven't played in a lot of games, and they're a team that's defending. Like they're not as hungry as the Panthers are going to be, in my opinion. The Panthers are going to be really hungry to prove a lot of people wrong from the start of this season. So I have the Panthers beating the Tampa Bay Lightning.
right.
Next, I'm going to the North. I think the Leafs are going to sweep the Habs here. The Habs are not a good enough team to beat the Leafs. Yes, the Leafs do have a lot of issues in the playoffs, but I cannot see them choking it against this Habs team. Next, we have Oilers and Jets. I think this is going to be a very close series, but close in games, not in the games it goes. If that makes any sense. But I have the Oilers winning in a close series that has a lot of games that are high scoring but decided by a single goal. In the West, no matter what seeding it is, whether it's the Golden Knights 1 or 2, I think the Golden Knights are going to win their series and the Avalanche win theirs. Those teams are undoubtedly better than the Blues and the Wild. Next, we're going to go to the East matchups. I think the Caps are going to slay their demons once again against the Penguins. This is a homer pick. It's mine, so I got to go with my team. I just think with the Peter Laviolette system, I think we'll be able to figure it out in the playoffs. He's been to the playoffs a significant amount of times. And Ovi, our team has gone through the Stanley Cup down that a team can experience, and we know what not to do and we know what to do in this situation. While it's the Penguins, I just think it's been a little bit since they've been there, and while the Caps have a lot more younger players than the Penguins do. Like the Penguins, it seems like they've kept the same team for what seems like 10 years now, and I think they're going to really struggle as these games get into the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Now in the Central, while the Florida Panthers are a good team on a hot streak, I don't think they're good enough to beat the Hurricanes. I just simply can't see them beating them. Yes, they've had some close games. I just can't see them winning. Next in the North, I think the Maple Leafs are gonna really end their drought and get to a position where if they win this next series, they can make it to the Stanley Cup. Next, this is going to be a very difficult series that can sway either way, considering almost every single game that these teams have played, the Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights, they've been decided by 1 or 2 goals. So this series can go either way. I think it just depends on which team can impose their style more. I'm going to go with the Avs because I think their offense is very fast and young, and they're going to be able to get their legs moving and throw a lot of cross crease pucks against Fleury. And as we've seen, that's been kind of his Achilles heel, getting him to overcommit, trying to make the spectacular save, but you kind of catch him out of the net. I'm going to have a repeat playoff series from a few years ago. The Caps, we've kind of struggled against fast teams, and I think that's going to continue.
Real quick, before we keep on doing this, we have to double check. We have to double check the points percentage and make sure all these, because once they get into the interdivisional play, that's when it matters. So, yeah, it's 722 for the Avalanche.
Caps of 77.
So Toronto will be the 3rd team, and the Caps will be the 4th. So it'll actually be Colorado. It'll actually be Colorado versus the Caps, and so the Caps will be the 4th seed going into the final 4. And actually, let me just do this. Let me just make these the final 4 up here, just because of the fact that there isn't a specific bracket, and then we will do you can continue your thing. So the Avs will be the 1 seed, the Caps will be the 2 seed or the 4 seed, the Maple Leafs are the 3 seed, and the Hurricanes are the 4 seed.
With these are going to be some very difficult series because the Avs are a very fast team like the Hurricanes, but they don't have the depth the Hurricanes have because, yes, they have Landeskog, they have Nathan McKinnon, Andre Burakovsky, but after that, they don't really have that deep playoff experience in some of the players like the Caps do. Yes, this could be just a homer pick, but I think the Caps experience, honestly, with their coach and their players could be the deciding factor in the series, considering that we've pretty much done it on the playoffs. We've been in almost every single situation that a team can be in. So I think the Caps are going to move on to a Stanley Cup final.
Another Stanley Cup final in 3 years for the Caps. All right.
In this series, Hurricanes versus Maple Leafs, I think the Maple Leafs run's going to come to an end. I just cannot see them beating this Hurricanes team. I think the Hurricanes, I think I'd say they're the best team in the NHL. They're just so fast, and they've had more experience in the playoffs in the recent years, like winning, than the Maple Leafs had.
So this is exactly what I wanted to see in the final. I want to see a East, and this would be a Metropolitan Stanley Cup because the Hurricanes are normally in the Metropolitan with the Caps. So we're looking at a Metropolitan Stanley Cup finals.
Like this, I can see this series going 7 games because the playoff series that the Caps had against them, we got 3 games up against them, but we weren't able to finish it off because I think we were still on that like Stanley Cup high, because you've seen it happen to teams all the time. So I think this is going to be a 7-game series. I think the Caps defense is going to be able to kind of contend, but I think this is, if the Caps are going to win, which it's going to be hard to see them doing, our goalie is going to have to step up. If they do, I think they'll win, but I think they're going to be too young, and I think the Hurricanes are going to win in 7.
All right. So you have this ending just like our joint matchup with the Hurricanes winning the Cup overall. All right, so that's an interesting pick, and we are going to get right into mine. But before we do that, I'm going to refresh the page, and we'll skip over. It'll be a second for you guys. It will be a couple minutes for us. All right, so we're now going to go into my picks, and I'm now realizing after looking at your picks that this is going to end up kind of weird because we had Vegas going in our group picks, but neither of us are going to have Vegas going in our individual picks. But
well,
it's okay.
It's so close.
So with mine, I'll start off in the East just like you did, and I'm going to make a lot of different picks. So I'm going to have an upset in my first matchup. I'm going to have the Islanders beating the Penguins just because of the fact that they are older. Matthew Barzal is nasty. I mean, that team is just better all around, in my opinion. So I think they're going to have an edge over the Penguins. And then with I still think that'll be a close series, but I think the Islanders have a defensive team, and the Penguins they're going to have to lose out of their hot streak eventually. I don't think they'll be able to ride their hot streak all the way to the Stanley Cup. No way. So I think they're going to lose out on it eventually, and I think it's going to be in the first round of the playoffs. And then in the other Eastern matchup, I'm going to have the Bruins beating the Capitals in another good, interesting series because this is the best division in the NHL easily. But I think that the Bruins will have a slight edge over the Capitals because of the Capitals' lack of experienced goaltending. And I mean, the perfection line for the Bruins and Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and David Pastrnak is insane. And Taylor Hall proved to be a nice addition to the Bruins, being that he got 8 goals with the Bruins and he only scored 2 with the Sabres. So I mean, he looks like he found a pretty legit home in Boston for a little bit and looking to go win his first Stanley Cup while on that trip. So I'm just going to stay in the East and get my matchup out of the way now. And I'm going to have Boston beating the Islanders because I think Boston, they're still on that vengeance tour after losing to the Blues a couple years ago, and they need to come back and prove their worth. And they're going to try to get Brad Marchand, not Brad Marchand. They're going to try to get Patrice Bergeron one more cup before he starts contemplating retirement. So now I'm going to move on down to the Central. This one's an easy pick. I'm going to have Carolina smoke the Predators. The Predators just aren't that great of a team. They kind of slowed down after they lost to the Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they haven't really been the same team since. They've kind of been like the Wild, where they're good, they just don't make any really big pushes for anything. And in the Central, I think honestly, I can see what I'm going to have happen is I'm going to have oh my gosh, I'm sorry, this is being annoying. But yeah, I'm going to have the Lightning advance over to, what did I do? Yeah, I'm going to have the Lightning advance over to the playoffs, or over to the divisional round with the Hurricanes. And with Nikita Kucherov coming back after essentially a whole season of rest, I just think that he's going to be plenty rested for the playoffs, and he's just an insane player overall. So we're going to have him advance with the rest of his team on over to play the Hurricanes, but they're not going to do much against the Hurricanes, as the Hurricanes will just prove to be a better, younger team and annihilate them overall. So I'm going to have the Hurricanes and Boston in the Final Four. In the West, I'll go over to the West. And this is the part where I think it's funny because, like you said, no matter what happens, no matter whether Vegas drops down to number 2 or stays at number 1, Vegas and the Avalanche are advancing no matter who they play. In my opinion, I don't think either the Wild or the Blues even compare closely to what the Blues or the Wild have to offer overall. And then out of that matchup, I'm going to have the Avalanche advance because I think they just have such an insane team with the addition of Torrey Krug on the back end. And then you have the up and coming of a perfection line in Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, and Mikko Rantanen. I mean, that line is insane. That entire line made an All-Pro appearance a couple years ago. And so, I mean, they just proved that they're one of the nastiest lines in the league year in, year out. Nathan MacKinnon is a continuous Hart Trophy candidate. And then in the North, I'm gonna go off the board here a little, and because of the fact that this team proves that they're scrappy and they don't want to give it up, and the Maple Leafs, they're gonna continue their drought. I'm gonna have the Canadians beat the Maple Leafs and move on to the next round and play another one that's a little bit off the board. But you know what? This is different, and we like difference. I'm going to have the Jets beat the Oilers because I think they're going to be able to slow Connor McDavid down enough that they're going to be able to advance. And actually, you know what? No, I'm going to stick with the Oilers. Connor McDavid scores 22 points against you in a single season, scores 100 points in a season. I can't justify that. Even trying to do so, I can't justify not having Connor McDavid and the Oilers advance. And then that final North matchup, I'm going to have the Oilers advance past the Canadians easily because I don't think that Carey Price has enough to hold back that line in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So we're going to go over and we'll look at the standings real quick. And Colorado has 722, 714, Boston 652, and Edmonton 640. So Edmonton will be 4, Boston will be 3. So I think these are actually going to stay the same matchups. Yeah, they are. So I'll just leave them where they are. So these are going to stay the same matchups, and we're not going to be having that East-East or West-West combination like I wanted, but I think I think it's still going to be an overall good series because I'm going to have the Avalanche beat the Oilers in a 6-game series because I don't think the Oilers will be able to hold back that up and coming, in my opinion, perfection line. And then I think that Boston is going to try to make a comeback after losing to the Blues a couple years ago, and they are going to beat the quick Hurricanes team, and the Hurricanes are going to have to wait another year before they can show who they really are. And Boston's really just making that push because I think if Boston wins the Stanley Cup this year, Patrice Bergeron will retire. And so I think they're going to be going to try to make a good reason for him to retire. And I think this will be a 7-game Stanley Cup final. Two teams who have an insane first line. With the Boston, you got Pasta, Brad Marchand, the Rat, and Patrice Bergeron. And then with the Avalanche, you got Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, and Gabriel Landeskog. 2 amazing first lines going at each other. But in the end, I think that the Avalanche just have a lot more back end security on defense than the Bruins do. And I think that'll be the difference maker in the end of the series. And I think the Avalanche are going to win the Stanley Cup. So that is mine. And I think a lot of them are off the board, but I think this could be an actual legitimate thing to happen because that's the one thing that's great about the NHL playoffs is the parity. You never know what can happen.
I think especially this year, there's so many like series that you can consider swing. Like, so I definitely think anything could happen considering that once you get to the Final Four, none of them have played each other in over a year, I think.
Yes.
And so like literally anything could happen. Like it just could have easily been the Oilers and the Hurricanes. It's going to be very
you don't know what's going to happen, and that's what's going to make it fun.
Yeah.
But with that is going to end our playoff predictions. So we're going to post all these on Instagram, so you can go check out our Instagram at BL in the DC. You can follow me on Instagram at tkunik10. You can follow Jacob atjalvarez639. You guys can DM us on Instagram. You can tweet at me at PhillyTalkTK. You can send us emails, give us suggestions, give us questions to answer on here at blinthedc@gmail.com. And we will see you guys on Monday, where we're going to go back into depth in the leagues, where the playoffs will have started, and we will kind of look at how the playoffs are going as of there. And we'll talk a little bit about the schedule release, but I think next Wednesday we will talk about the schedule release for the Eagles and the Washington football team, and maybe give season predictions on what we think is going to happen with our teams.
Predict our records.
So be sure to check those out, and we will see you guys on Monday.
See you guys later.